The beats are hitting today. We're talking NBA. We're talking trade deadline. We're talking sellers. We did the buyers show already. If you didn't see it, go back to the YouTube. Mike the Mush, subscribe, hit the like, hit the chat, do the stuff. Share it with your friends. Talk to your dog about it if you don't have any friends. If you don't have a dog, go get one, you know? But in any case, a lot of sellers. A lot of sellers on the market at the deadline. Not as many buyers, I don't think, which is going to make it a weird trade deadline. But you never really know what you're going to get. And on Thursday, when the deadline passes, we'll do a live show right back here. And we will cover all reactions, theories, looking ahead to buyouts for teams that didn't do anything, which is obviously going to happen. Lots of stuff. I'm excited for Thursday. Trade deadline is probably my favorite thing. I love it. It's my favorite moment of sports. NBA trade deadline. I really believe that. Aside from, I guess, like a Super Bowl or an NBA Finals, like actually winning and culminating the season, this is my favorite midseason activity. No doubt about it. There's just so much that you don't know, and you can try to figure out. And then when you hit one, you're like, yes! Feels good. How about Karis Levert? Let's start there. Karis Levert going to the Cavs. If you've been watching this show, which you should, subscribe. These are notes. You know, I love the Cavs. I'm a Cavs guy. And all they were missing, and I said they were going to be buyers. It's in the buyers show, which is now dated. What are you going to do? They just needed a ball handler that can score the basketball. And what did they get? Karis Levert. Karis Levert can score the basketball. Can he do much else? I don't know. Does he need to do much else? I don't think so. I actually think I'd rather have Karis Levert than Colin Sexton, probably, as far as fit goes on this team. And I think Colin Sexton, I'm not going to say he's going to get traded at the deadline, but I think he could get moved in the offseason because Levert fits this team much better. He's under contract. The Pacers thing was okay. He's been in the league a while. He's 27. That feels weird. But he could score 20 a game. He did it last year. He's going to get you right around 19. He's going to shoot pretty well. His three-pointer leaves a little bit to be desired over the past couple of years, but he shot 2019-20. He shot 36%. I mean, that's fine. He needs to space the floor, but more importantly, he needs to handle the ball, initiate offense, and that's what he can do. And they got him for pretty cheap. They gave up some picks. I mean, look. Where's the picks they gave up? 2022 second-round pick and a 2022 first-round pick. Oh, they're getting a 2022 second. Okay. So they're getting... Let's talk about the first-rounder. It's lottery protected, which isn't going to matter because it's next year's pick. The Cavs are already good, right? So Cavs are right now fourth in the East. This is going to be a bottom 10 pick, and they're going to improve with Levert, right? So... not that worried about that. How often are you going to get a player of Karis Levert's caliber for a pick in the 20s in the draft? Maybe you can. Where did he get drafted? He was pick 20. Okay. But even so, for a sure thing who has now developed, I still do that. And then you're swapping second-round picks. The only problem is your second-round pick, if you're the Cavs... comes from Houston. So that's going to be a good pick, actually. It's almost, in some ways, I think those picks are better than first-round picks because you don't have to lock yourself into a 4-year deal. The downside is that if they flourish, you don't get that extra couple of years, but still, they're cheaper, and they're right around in that same range where you can move up, you can move down, so it doesn't matter that much. So they did give up that pick, and then the other one is a 2027 second-round pick, so who cares? I mean, most second-round picks, if not the top 5 in the second round, are pretty much just able to be purchased with cash. So, in any case, I think this is a good deal. I don't know how much better the Pacers were really going to do. People are making it seem like this is an ultra steal. I mean, I like Levert a lot. I think it's great for the Cavs. It's the right move. I don't know about a steal. I think it's pretty fair. But, definitely closes the gap on what the Cavs want to do for this year. Maybe they'll get another piece. I don't know. And more importantly, begins the fire sale for Indiana. So I love the Cavs, man. I love the Cavs. I don't see why. The East is wide open. The Bucks and the Heat are tough. The Bulls, I think, are pretty much on pace with the Cavs in different ways. This is small, this is big, right? Sixers are still a problem because of Embiid, but and the Nets, who knows? I just think if the Cavs make this run to the Eastern Conference Finals, is anyone going to be super shocked? A lot of these teams are pretty similar from one another. It would be a cool Cinderella run, but they're equipped to do it. Like between Garland and Levert and Mobley and Allen, and then you have Kevin Love and Markkanen, and you got guys. All right, this isn't a Cavs podcast, but the point is, I like the Cavs. Let's go down the list. And I can share this list. I have it in my notes here. I'll put it on this side. And we'll start with the Wizards. Now, I want to go through the salaries for each of them and try to come up with who's actually movable. And we're not going to go too far, but I created a list of who I think the sales candidates are. And the Wizards are a tough one because they started hot and now they're in a free fall. Big time free fall. Last 10, 2-8. I mean, they're bad, but they have decent players. The question is, what do you want to do? Is Brad Beal going to get traded? I don't know. It's hard to fit him into a place. I mean, people talk about how impossible Westbrook is to trade, but then you want to trade Bradley Beal, who has a $33 million contract. It's like, there's only so many teams that can take him on, so it's possible. I think it's more likely that Dinwiddie could get moved, although his contract is not exactly friendly, and he has not played well lately. He has 2 more years after this at big numbers. Now, the 3rd year is partially guaranteed. Maybe you can get someone who's desperate for a guard. I thought the Cavs were kind of desperate for a guard. I don't know how many other teams are going to be. I wouldn't count on him getting moved, and if he does, I don't think it's going to provide a huge return. Bertans is one that's weird because he has a gigantic contract, and he has not shot well, but he's capable of shooting well. That's the weird thing. This season, he's shooting 32% from 3, but last year it was 40%. The 2 years before that, well over 40%. But no one's going to trade for a guy on this huge contract that shoots 32%. So that would involve, I don't know, Washington's whole thing is like, how many salaries can you get rid of? And I don't know how to do this. You can't unload everybody. So I can see Caldwell Pope getting moved because he's manageable and he's a good role player. I mean, you sent him back to the Lakers, they'd be ecstatic, right? Kuzma, same thing. They fill a role and they don't make insane money. Harrell just ruffles feathers wherever he goes. But all of these guys are movable. So it's hard to narrow down for the Wizards, which is why I wanted to start with them, because it's almost impossible to really get too deep on it. Who you're going to move and what the future of your team looks like. And what do you even want in return at this point? Because if you're giving away Beal, this team's already dead in the water. So I guess you're just trying to tear it down, dump salary, and get picks in return, which you can get. But how many different guys can you move for the same thing before you turn into the Thunder with 20 picks and nobody on the team? So they just have a direction problem. And I'm thinking that they might end up just holding. If they can dump a piece or two, fine. But I think they need to figure out what they want to do and who they want to build around before any of this happens. And if you decide to trade Beal for a young asset to a team that I can't think of currently that has a young asset, even if it's, this is a ridiculous version, but if it's Jaylen Brown from the Celtics, right? And then you want to build around him, well, you still need to get rid of everybody else. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to pull all that off at the deadline. They might start to make moves and then finish it in the offseason. So they're a weird one. Let's talk Knicks, my hometown dumpster fire of a team. This one is more interesting because you can parse off pieces a little easier than the Wizards can because they're much cheaper. Like Alec Burks doesn't make a lot of money. You can dump him and you can actually get, I don't know if you're going to get a first-round pick, but you can get second-round picks in cap relief or, an expiring contract this year instead of next year. So you can maneuver your financials a little bit more. Same thing with Kemba Walker. Same thing with Nerlens Noel. Now, I put Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin on this list for a different reason, because those deals are more likely to be if you're going big, if you're going to get a Dame Lillard, if you're going to get a CJ McCollum, which they've been linked to. You might have to give up one of those pieces, but they're not moving for the same reasons. So the Knicks have a lot of options here. It's actually, if you were a GM, I know it's not the team you really want to be running, but there's flexibility here because they signed these deals that were short-term role players, except for Fournier, who I think is still movable, actually, but mostly just to a real contender who needs a final piece and can give you back an expiring contract that's pretty big. Westbrook was one example that I made on the Buyers pod, but I'm sure there's other ones that I think the Knicks can do something. They can go get second round picks, and then they can package those into a first round pick. Maybe somehow, maybe you put Burks and Kemba together, and that equals a late first round pick to a contender, and you take an expiring contract back. No different than what Indiana just did with Levert, right? So they have options here too, and I would be shocked to see the Knicks stand pat. They have to do something. People have been talking about Randall for Fox. I don't know if that makes sense, because that's just swapping just assets that you don't really love but don't hate either. I don't know how that gets either team closer to the finish line, but I really think there's something here with Fournier, because it just hasn't really looked right, and it's a big salary, but on the right team, I really think he can do a lot. And it's a team option in 24-25. He's got 3 years at $18 million. That's not that bad for what he brings to the table. It's really not. He shoots 40% from three very consistently, and he can score the basketball, and he doesn't do much else. Like, if the Knicks traded Fournier to the Cavs, would we be having the same conversation in a different lens that we are with Levert? I don't think he's the same player, but he's only 2 years older, and he's actually more proven, probably. So I think they can do something like that and go get a first-round pick for him. Like, is someone desperate enough to do that can take on the salary? I mean, you got to look around. Can the Sixers do it if they maneuver something else with Simmons? Or could the Knicks be like a third team in that kind of deal? Celtics don't want him back, obviously. The West, I mean, man, he would fit on the Warriors, but they're not going to do that kind of thing. Unless the Warriors wanted to give up, like, I'm not saying they're going to do this, but they have maneuverability with Kuminga and Wiseman, and it's not going to be a Fournier deal, but you kind of get my point. The Jazz could go get him for sure, give back an expiring there, especially after losing Ingles for the season. I think the Mavs, I mean, it just depends what the Knicks want to do too, right? But for me, as a fan, I'm ready to blow this thing up. This ain't the team. So if I can get out from under that salary and get a first-round pick for it, that's a good deal. You're getting paid a first-round pick just because you parked a salary for 6 months on your team. So you combine that with being able to deal Burks and Kemba for cap relief and moving up your expiring contracts a year, and I think they can do a lot. I think they can be active, and I think they could be a suitable third team in a lot of different deals. So I would look for them to be active. Pacers are in tear-it-down mode. They have already started. I wrote down, obviously, Sabonis and Miles Turner are the big pieces. I wrote down TJ McConnell and Jeremy Lamb as like throw-in pieces and salary filler because I think they can still fill roles on teams. I love Jeremy Lamb because I went to UConn, and I still think he can score, but his role got passed by. And he hasn't been playing very much after the injuries, and who knows if he has anything left in the tank, but as a salary matcher, I could see that, and same with McConnell. Like, he can be your backup point guard that plays 10 minutes a game and is not going to kill you in a playoff series. It's not going to be great. He's not going to defend many people. But the real truth here is Sabonis and Miles Turner, can you trade one of them? I don't think you're going to be able to trade both, and I don't think Indiana even really wants to trade both. I don't think they're in that big of tear-it-down mode. I think they're okay with keeping Brogdon, who can't be traded at the deadline because of when his salary was added on or whenever the extension happened, whatever it is. I don't think he can be traded yet. And I think Sabonis will fetch you a better return, but I think Turner is the guy I would rather get rid of. They're both solid. I just think Sabonis is really, really, really good. And again, it depends what the GM wants to do, right? Would you rather have the better return and work out what to do later with your own team, or give Turner for a first-round pick and try to continue to build around Sabonis? It's hard to say, but I think there's more suitors for a Sabonis-level player than a Turner-level player, because if you're looking for a team that needs a center, it's not the Bulls, it's not the Heat, they have Bam, it could be the Bucks, but I don't know if the Bucks are going to want to do that and put Turner next to Giannis. Is that too big? And then Portis has been playing really well, so what do you do with him? I don't think that works. Cavs are already too big. Sixers have Embiid. Nets could really use it, but that would involve them moving Harden, which, by the way, everyone's talking about the Harden-Simmons thing. If you want that content, either go back to my video of when I did all of the Ben Simmons trade machine stuff, or get it literally anywhere else. I'm not going to waste time talking about that when everyone else did. But again, who needs not that Turner's a traditional center, I guess, but more than Sabonis. He's not as flexible. Suns don't. Warriors, maybe. Maybe you get like a Turner to the Warriors for Wiseman. Does that work for both sides? And then you dump some salary going back to Indiana? Maybe. Grizzlies have Adams. I don't think they're eager to get rid of that. Gobert on the Jazz. Mavs have KP, who's been playing really well. Nuggets have Jokic. T-Wolves have Towns. You get where I'm going with this. I just don't think there's a lot of teams in need of a center, but I think there's a lot of teams in need of a swingman power forward kind of thing who can shoot very well and rebound very well. Because you start to look at that and you're like, okay, everyone wants him. Like he fits so well on a lot of teams that I think you're going to have an easier time finding a spot for Sabonis. And so I won't be surprised if he moves. And maybe it's Turner, but maybe not. If I'm the Pacers, I'd try to keep Sabonis, but I'd also acknowledge that there's just way more deals out there, and that's probably the path to rebuilding this team. And they really both need to move, I think. This team's going nowhere. Like, I don't see... I'm okay with building around Sabonis and getting rid of every other piece on this team. But if it's the reverse and you deal Sabonis, I'm not building around Turner. I don't know how old he is. And he's good. I'm not trying to put him down. He's only 25. All right. I mean, wow. That's much younger than I thought. He is good. It's just like, I don't know. Big center who doesn't rebound just doesn't really do it for me. He can play. He's just not the cornerstone of my franchise, right? And neither is Malcolm Brogdon. I'm kind of like, yeah, I would rather build around Sabonis, but I just don't think they're going to do that, because I think they're going to get blown away with an offer of like 2 first-round picks and a young asset, and I can see that going. But yeah, Pacers are tearing it down, so look for that. Pistons, I think I put Jeremy Grant, we talked about in the buyers, but he needs to get traded, I think, because they're nowhere near his window. He's got this year and next year. So the team dealing for him doesn't have to worry about contract stuff. They know they have him next year. They can probably get him for a first-round pick and maybe a young asset. I don't think it's going to take too much. He's not like this unbelievable all-star level player, but he can play. I mean, he's scoring. Last year he scored 20 points per game. But when you see him on a good team, here's the worry, right? He wanted to be the guy. And none of the big teams are going to have Jeremy Grant be their guy. So is he going to be happy with one of these deals? That's what I would be concerned about if I were buying from him. If you're the Pistons, you're like, I'll take what I can get. We're terrible. He's not in our long-term view. But when he was on Denver, it didn't look great. He can defend okay. He scored 12 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, no assists really. He can shoot. You know, he's fine. I think if I'm Detroit, I'm like, get him out the door. Because if we can get something good for him now, first round pick that turns into something and a young asset, that's better than what you're getting out of him now. And you already know that you're trying to kind of, I don't want to say trick teams into taking him. And maybe he's just a better player now having all this experience. But I don't know that I would be eager to give up more than a first-round pick for getting Jeremy Grant on my team. Like, I acknowledge that he could be good on a lot of different teams, I guess. Cavs being one of them if they really wanted to go all in, but I don't think they need to. And he's not really a stretch shooter, so where does he fit? Brooklyn, but you can't fit that without moving Harden again. Grizzlies, maybe that can make sense if you want to consolidate and give up the Kyle Andersons of the world and a first-round pick. I mean, maybe that works. Utah to replace Ingles, sure. Denver, he came from already. They're not going to do that. Dallas, I think, could be a good fit for him. I think that could make a lot of sense because they just need a swingman that doesn't actually command the ball very much. And so I could see that being a thing. And if Dallas wanted to give up a first-round pick and, I don't know, if they wanted to give up, they just don't have a lot of young talent. First-round pick and Moses Brown, and then salary filler, like a Dwight Powell. Maybe that's enough. I don't want to give up Brunson if I'm them, but maybe that's how that looks. You put Brunson next to Cade, and that's kind of nice. Maybe you take Killian Hayes back or something. There's something there. But I would look for... if Jeremy Grant doesn't get moved at the deadline, I'm just going to be blown away. But I do think there's more here. I mean, don't forget about the other guys that can be traded. Kelly Olynyk can play a role on a team. We've seen him do it before. The question is how healthy he is. I mean, that is just not how you spell it. Is he coming back? Oh, he is back. Okay. Look at that. He just came back. So now's the perfect time. And Trey Lyles, too. I have him on the list. I mean, all these guys play the same position for the Pistons and all need to be traded. I don't know how they're going to have a power forward coming back, but it doesn't matter. Kelly Olynyk makes $12 million. That's chump change. He can be an eighth man off the bench for a playoff team. And you know what? Like, teams need an eighth man. It sounds silly, but they do. And you take anything you can get for Kelly Olynyk, especially if it's a young person. So I don't know who it's going to be, but like the Bucks could go get Kelly Olynyk to be a really poor man's version of Brook Lopez. Why not? They could give up. I mean, in a perfect world, like I don't think the Bucks are going to do this, but you could get Dante DiVincenzo for Kelly Olynyk maybe. And you do that if you're the Pistons. So there's stuff brewing there. I don't want to forget about all these young players. Same thing with Trey Lyles. Like, he can play a little bit and he costs nothing. Literally nothing. I won't be shocked at all to see a contender go get Trey Lyles for a second-round pick. And the Pistons are like, sure. Or Rodney Magruder. Like, there's guys here. Even Luka Garza. Like, they don't have to be world beaters to be traded at the deadline. And some deadlines are really impactful without the gigantic headlines. Or some trades get buried by the gigantic headlines, and then you turn around in the playoffs, and the ninth guy off the bench plays a crucial role in a big game. Like when Joe Harris comes in for the Nets. I mean, bad example. He's probably a sixth man. But the point is, you get this stuff that happens, and then you wonder, like, oh, why did nobody go get him? When Iguodala was playing unbelievable for the Warriors, nobody wanted him at that point. And then he was like a seventh man off the bench and won the MVP, basically, of the finals. And you're like, oh, wow, we probably should have went and got him. Or Jay Crowder to the Suns. And you're like, oh, why didn't we think of that? So don't pass by some of these smaller names just because you want to talk about Simmons and Harden over and over and over. Same thing with the Magic, right? They have pieces. This is what the savvy GMs are going to do. I like Terrence Ross. I've always liked Terrence Ross. I think he can fill it up. And he's the perfect guy that if it's not working out, you just don't bring him off the bench. He takes two shots, they both don't go in, you get him out. It's fine. But he's a heat check guy, costs almost nothing, is a seasoned veteran, and can do a little bit of everything, and can shoot the basketball. I assume his shooting percentage is pretty okay. Yeah, I mean, he's shot 38% before. He's up and down. He's not having a great year, but a change of scenery might be good for him. And if you can get anything for him, you probably do it. Same with Gary Harris, right? You paid him. I don't know why. And he's an expiring this year. This is a contract that is beautifully set up for a trade. I don't know what you're going to get. And I don't know if any contender wants to take on a $20 million contract. But this could be something that goes to a non-contender even. Or maybe the Magic just want to keep him and get that $20 million off the books. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know how desperate they are to get cap space because not everyone's banging down the door to go to Orlando. If they are, they're waiting online at Disney. Surely not in whatever stupid naming rights their stadium has. So I think there's something here. I don't think you're going to see them trade Bamba or Carter or Suggs or Wagner. And they could definitely trade Robin Lopez. Like, that's perfect example. Better than the Kelly Olynyk example of a team that, I mean, hey, the Bucks could go get Brooks' brother to replace him, right? He was on the Bucks already. $5 million to get a center that can play backup minutes and defend in the playoffs? Deal. I'd actually be surprised if he doesn't get traded. So I think you got to look more towards what contenders can do. If you're a savvy GM, you got to be, I don't want to say scraping the bottom of the barrel, but you got to be really trying to find players that can give you 10 minutes in an important playoff game and fill a role. It doesn't always have to be James Harden. What about the Pelicans? Who did I put that they have? They're a weird one too. Like, Josh Hart is a really good trade piece, I think. I like Josh Hart a lot. I think he can be a seventh man on a playoff team that can win the championship. I think he could be a sixth man, probably. I think he could play I think he could be on the court when you win an NBA Finals. That's how good I think Josh Hart is. I don't feel that way about Devontae Graham, but if you need a backup scorer who can just go out there and fill it up, like, I think this was a target in the Levert world, right? Similar. Doesn't have to be super efficient, just needs to go handle the ball and get shots up. But Hart can really fetch you something. And they need to just decide what they're doing. Like, Zion's not coming back this year, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. I just don't think that's happening. What a screwed up situation they have. I mean, could they trade Brandon Ingram? Like, what are they doing? What are the Pelicans trying to do? This one is really hard to figure out because they have no roadmap at all. And some of the teams are just like this, and sometimes you see these teams just stand pat because they don't know what to do, and they wait till the offseason, and then, you miss the moment to strike while the iron was hot. Because if someone's looking for a swingman right now, I don't think they should pass that by. I don't know who that's going to be. Another good target for the Jazz, I think, would be to go get Josh Hart. He would fit like a glove there. Really could replace Ingles and be better, I think. So I'd look for that. And I think he could go to a lot of different places. If the Timberwolves can get him and give up Beverly and give up a pick to upgrade that way, a second-round pick, big upgrade for them. I think there's suitors. I mean, Dallas, again, Denver. Denver would die to start Josh Hart, probably, at this point. Their backcourt is terrible. So I think there's a market for a player like that. Is there a market for Brandon Ingram? They would have to decide if they want to trade him first. And if you're trading him, then what are you doing? You can't, I mean, I don't know. You can't, if you're tearing it down, then you should be trading Zion and Valanciunas also. And Valanciunas has been really good. He's so surprisingly good. He's an expiring contract this year. This would not be shocking if they moved him. But again, who needs a center? Not many teams. Maybe this is a Bucks move. Can they fit him? Who knows? I wonder what the Bucks salaries are like. Let's check that out. Because Valanciunas should get moved. Like, you can't lose him for nothing. And he's not going to re-sign with your team when you don't even know what you're doing with Zion or Ingram. And when you have everybody, they weren't good. So they have all the picks in the world from the Anthony Davis trade. That's cool. I don't think they need more picks. I don't think selling is really going to do much unless you're getting young talent. So this is the kind of team that worries me, that they just stand pat and do nothing even though they're at a crux of their future. But if you can get something for Jonas, who could they give up in return? I mean, I don't think you want to give up Brook Lopez is expiring, and he's not even expiring. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine someone's going to trade for Brook Lopez with a back injury and next year being on the hook for $14 million when he's probably not going to come back. But if you could add up George Hill, and Grayson Allen and some salary filler, like all these kind of guys, the Wes Matthews and Semi Ojeleyes and Rodney Hoods, and then you just replace those guys with people in the buyout market because they're not really in the rotation or a meaningful spot in the rotation anyway, and you could replace that with Valanciunas, you probably jump at that opportunity, and at least you probably get a second round pick or something. You don't want to let Jonas walk for nothing. That would be bad. So now that I look at it, I do expect him to get traded, and if he doesn't, it really makes you wonder what the Pelicans are thinking about for the future. The Spurs, it's hard to see the Spurs as sellers ever, but Thad Young's gotta go, right? Like, question is, do people think there's a role for him? Same thing with Valanciunas. He's expiring this year. You want to get something for him. You're not bringing him back. He can't score. He hasn't really played much this year. It looks like the wheels have kind of fallen off. But if you can get a second-round pick for Thad Young, I think both teams probably feel pretty good about that. So we'll see. Derek White is the real one. And Doug McDermott, maybe, like if someone needs a shooter, I could see him going for a mediocre pick, or anyone with young upside. But Derek White is the one I keep looking at and wondering, like, who could really benefit from him, because he's under contract for a while. He is scoring 15 points a game. He is not shooting that well. But I think at 27, this is the moment where you need to decide, like, is he capable of filling a role on an NBA Finals team? And I don't know the answer to that. But he's not a small guard. He's 6'4". And Murray is their guy. We know that. And I don't really think Murray and White work well together. So maybe this is just a wrong place, wrong time kind of season for Derek White. And I wonder if there's a team out there that can kind of take advantage of that. Like the Celtics, could they go get him on the cheap and just flip him for a late pick and Schroeder, and just see, like, if they strike out on all their major deals, just see if they can catch lightning in a bottle and play him at the point and see if that works better. Because I do think Boston's going to try to get a point guard at the deadline. I don't know. There might be something there. But this contract is pretty big for an unproven guy. So it's really going to take, like, this could be a situation where another team wants to dump a bad contract and will take something in return and then give up a pick for it. I can't think of who that is unless Ben Simmons goes to the Spurs or something like that. That'd be wild. That'd be interesting, actually, if you can get Ben Simmons to the Spurs and then White and a couple other pieces to the Sixers with picks. That'd be fascinating. But yeah, I don't know exact. Denver, Derek White to Denver would make sense. Like, they really need a guard. Murray's coming back, but they still need another guard at least. And I think he could be had. I don't think the Spurs are tying themselves too tightly to him, but we're really talking about scrap heap at that point. Who else do we have? The Kings. I mean, what do you do with the Kings? Another team that you just need to decide your future. If you can get rid of De'Aaron Fox, they better do it. Because I like De'Aaron Fox, but Tyrese Halliburton is the guy. When Fox was out, Halliburton was going like 30 and 10 very efficiently, and they were playing really well. And they have Davion Mitchell, and they have Buddy Hield, and they have Harrison. But this is like it's so full. It's way too full. Can you trade Buddy Hield for anything? I don't know if that time has passed. You can definitely trade Barnes. Is his years? He's got next year on the books, but for cheaper. They did a reverse contract here, which is working out in their favor because people will be excited to take him on. I think a lot of teams would want Harrison Barnes. He's proven. He's not old. He's still in his 20s. He went on that Warriors run through the playoffs. He had his struggles, but he's been there before. He can do a little bit of everything. He won't kill you in anything. I think he's a target. Now, will they be able to move Fox and Barnes? I don't know. It would have to be to different teams, but you can definitely take a shot at that. And if they could, I think they would try to move both. Then you have Bagley. Coming out of college, I thought Bagley was going to be so awesome. His second jump is just so good, and it hasn't translated to anything really. He was better last year. This year he's just scuffled, hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. He can rebound the basketball. And he's only 22. Like, I expect that someone would want to take a shot. I would go shopping at Sacramento. And Tristan Thompson can fill a role for a second-round pick if you need him to. If you're really desperate just for depth. He's been playoff tested too. So, if I'm Sacramento, I'm listening to every single call that doesn't involve Halliburton. Pretty much. And if I can flip 2 of these players that I listed, and if I can get a first-round pick and a young asset in total, I mean, you probably want more than that, but you're also in the business of getting rid of some of these salaries. And you already have some picks. You'd take picks for sure. Start building around Halliburton. See what he can do running the offense. And you're fielding every which call you can get. So I'd be... If they can trade 3 of their players, I think... The line I'd set at 2.5, but they'd like to trade 3. And I think other teams would like to have some of these guys. I really do. I don't think De'Aaron Fox is like this broken project that people think he is. He's struggled at the end of games. He doesn't shoot it great, but he's 24. The contract is just huge. So to me, that's more of like a situation where that's why I mentioned Randall. Like you might end up just swapping a bad contract for a bad contract. I mean, neither of these are terrible, but still. I just don't know if there's any suitors. That's the real issue. But there's suitors for Barnes. There's suitors for Bagley. There have to be, even Rashawn Holmes, like I think they want to keep him, but you can get these non-expensive contracts out the door if you really wanted to. Even Buddy Hield, how long is he signed for? 2 more years after this, another reverse contract, almost exactly the same as Barnes. And he's not young either. To think that he's 29 also is really wild that he's the same age as Harrison Barnes. Wow. Bizarre. But yeah, they play the same role. Like, get rid of one of them. So if you can trade one of those plus Bagley and maybe take feelers on Fox, you consider it a win. And I think other teams would want to do that. I mean, if the Lakers could get some of these players, they would be dying to do it. They probably could have at some point, but missed the boat. The Thunder are a weird situation. I didn't know what to write for them, and I wrote selling picks. Like, this is a reverse situation where I don't think anyone wants any of these players. They have no salary to give. They have no anything. They're not getting rid of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're not getting rid of Lou Dort. Who else do they have? They're not getting rid of Josh Giddey. They just got him. No one wants Derek Favors. But this is a team that, I guess it's buying. It's obviously buying. But in reality, it's kind of selling because you can't have all of these first-round picks. They have too many. You got to get rid of some. And if you have to get rid of some, I don't want to say you're going to give up picks for pennies on the dollar, but like you really have them to throw around. And if you wanted to go get Derek White or something, and you wanted to give up a first-round pick to do it, most teams would be like, I'm not going to do that, but good luck. The Thunder are like, yeah, we're basically holding tryouts here. Like, we can bring in anybody and give up picks because you can't use all these picks. So in some weird way, they're buying and selling at the same time. I don't know what to do with that, but if you all of a sudden you see the Thunder give up 2 first-round picks for a guy that's like, oh, really, him? Don't be shocked because they should do stuff like that. They should be taking swings because you can't use 27 first-round picks. You just can't, whatever the number is. The Rockets, this is really just John Wall, right? I mean, Eric Gordon for sure, actually. Eric Gordon needs to be moved. Someone needs a shooter off the bench. Somebody. This is non-guaranteed. I think non-guaranteed at all. I don't even think it's partially guaranteed. So basically, he has 1 more year on this contract. He's not young, but he's been around a while. Proven shooter. Shooting over 40% this season. Can fill it up. Doesn't need a huge role. I like this. And I could see almost every team being interested in an Eric Gordon, right? Because it's another one of those guys where it's like, if it's not working, you don't play him huge minutes. And if it is working, he might end up closing games for you a lot. He can shoot the basketball. It's about who can fit the contract. But I think someone can give up a first-round pick for Eric Gordon and not lose sleep over it. John Wall, on the other hand, who knows? I mean, the Wall for Westbrook thing works. Other than that, and I guess the Knicks, because if I pitched Westbrook to the Knicks, then I can pitch Wall to the Knicks the same way. But go back to the Buyers video for that one. It's nonsense, but it's real. I just, there's not a normal world where anyone wants pieces on the Rockets. I wrote down Daniel Tice, but I don't think anybody wants him. Maybe a second-round pick for depth. But Gordon, you have to nail the Gordon thing, and you have to do it now. If they let the trade deadline pass and don't trade Eric Gordon and don't get a first-round pick or a young asset for him, actually, I really would want the pick. Like, I don't even want the young asset because you don't even know what your team is yet. But if you miss out on that, no bueno. Get it done. The Blazers, we know. We've done the McCollum thing. We've done the Lillard thing. They both should be moved. Will they be? Who knows? I imagine McCollum will not be on the team in 2 days. 3 days. I can't imagine that he will be. I don't know why he would be. Lillard, I don't think is coming back this year, which makes it really difficult to deal with that trade. I think the ship has sailed for now. Maybe in the offseason they revisit it after we maybe see him or maybe don't. But Nurkic is actually the interesting one to me. They already sold Powell. They've proven they're in sell mode. But Nurkic is a $12 million expiring. So you have Nurkic, you have Valanciunas, and who was the other one I said? Bagley? A couple guys. There are centers available. There really are centers available that are pretty nice. But is the market going to, since the supply is so high, is the demand going to go down? And again, who needs a center? There's just not a lot of teams that need a center. I think Brooklyn does. Maybe Brooklyn can bring in Nurkic. What are you going to get from him? A 2031 first-round pick? I mean, if you could, you'd take it. I just don't know how many teams need center. Like, nobody needs a center. So if you're bringing in Nurkic to be a backup center, I don't think it's worth giving up a pick for that, which is where the Blazers might get stalled. So you can't just look at it in the vacuum like, we don't need this guy, get rid of him. Yeah, someone needs to take him. And if the Bucks are the only team that needs a center, then, like, how many can they get? So maybe you see something else happen with some of these other teams, the Raptors, or I just can't imagine those teams buying at this point. I know the Blazers are going to want to sell. McCollum feels like the one that can get done. Nurkic actually feels, even though the contract is so friendly, it just feels harder to find a partner. But maybe he is the one. I just put it this way. If I could bet on it, and I can't, but if there was someone who was willing to take this bet, I would say that one out of Valanciunas or Nurkic will probably be traded. I just can't figure out who it is, and I can't figure out a path to both of them being traded to different places. So, you know, that's the clip, I guess. How exciting. That's pretty much it. That runs the gamut of all these teams, right? I don't see who else would be sellers, unless the Hawks want to give up one more piece just to finish out their rotation a little more, not to actually sell, just to open minutes. You could see that kind of stuff, but I think that pretty much is the catalog of players that might go. So now we know who might be traded. Now we know who might be buying. And I'm sure there's 9 other scenarios that I haven't thought about that are really interesting. The Zion trade is the one that I'm keeping my eyes on. Man, if that happened, it'd be wild. It would be so wild. Woo! You could do a lot. You could do a lot there. And if I'm them, like, I really would. I honestly, you need to blow that thing up so bad that there's a real world scenario where, like, you need to get out from that contract before it ever gets signed. Because if you pay him and you have nothing, you're just going to be bad with him, and it's going to be an Anthony Davis situation where you have to trade him later. Maybe you're okay with that and punting it down the road 5 years and just see if one of your draft pick hits or something. I don't know. I guess you owe that to yourself after the Anthony Davis trade, now that you have all these picks. And the Drew Holiday trade, actually. They're so stacked with picks. Like, what do you even trade these guys for? And this is what you run into if you're the Thunder or the Pelicans or any of those teams. Like, once you have all the picks, you're stuck. There's no more selling. You can't sell forever. It worked out for the Sixers when they were tanking a lot, but I think a lot of these teams are already to the point in the process where they have all the picks the Sixers had. Like, they get all this credit for being the process, but in reality, a lot of these teams are already in hard sell mode. And with the prices that are out there now, look at that Paul George trade. It's like $1 million first-round picks. Drew Holiday, too. It's like, you can get the process done in 1 or 2 trades, and then what? You have to just wait forever. You can't keep selling unless you can consolidate pieces and get players in return, which I wonder if that's how the deadline goes. Less pick trades, more young player assets moving. We'll see. We'll be back on Thursday. After the deadline passes, we'll do a live show. Join me, like it, subscribe, hit the noti bell so you know when I go live. Follow at Mike Mush Sports on Twitter and Instagram. I'm posting there constantly. Join the chat. We'll talk about it. I can't wait to talk about the trades that go down. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm pumped. I'll see you there Thursday. Be there or be... You're still probably an NBA fan, but you're a little less cool in my book. See you there.